deserve this! Ah, you shot me. It hurts.
The young and the restless spoilers. The moment Riza entered Adam's bedroom, Adam seemed to have anticipated it. He wasn't surprised, scared, or anything. He greeted her. It was Riza who trembled. Adam, standing just a few steps away, didn't react like most people. There was no panic, no frantic movement. What kind of feud did Adam and Riza have? The producers haven't revealed that yet. It seemed Adam's talent was overwhelming, and indeed it was. Riza didn't answer immediately. Instead, she pulled the trigger and fired a shot at the ceiling. The deafening explosion echoed throughout the room, dust and debris falling like a warning from above. Adam began to feel fear. He hadn't expected Riza to fire. However, Adam didn't flinch. In fact, a nearly sneering smile appeared on his lips, as if he found the whole situation more amusing than frightening. Riza's eyes told her to put her hands behind her back and tie them up, or she would die. It unnerved her in a way she didn't want to admit. She told him to put his hands behind his back, her voice sharp, controlling, but tinged with something deeper. Anger, yes, but also something more complex, something personal. The past was something they both knew, and they were ready to kill each other without explanation. For a brief moment, time seemed to stretch. Riza tightened her grip on the gun, her patience wearing thin. Adam grew increasingly stubborn, believing Riza wouldn't dare shoot him. Adam's gaze locked onto hers, scrutinizing, calculating, and then without warning, he acted. It was a swift, instinctive action, the kind that comes from someone who has spent their life facing danger. He lunged toward the gun, confident, even reckless, as if he believed he could defeat her the way he had defeated so many others before. The gunshot rang out again, but this time the sound carried a different weight. Adam clutched his stomach and began to bleed. Adam was in pain. This wasn't the first time he'd been shot, but the pain was still real. His expression changed, not fear, but something quieter, almost a realization. His body swayed, his balance slipping as the pain surged through him, spreading uncontrollably. The room, once controlled and calm, now became chaotic and unstable, as if everything Adam had built in that space was crumbling before his eyes. Riza recoiled slightly, her chest heaving faster. For the first time, there was a hint of conflict in her expression. This was what she had come here to do, wasn't it? But seeing the outcome up close, seeing the man she had aimed at actually fall, something within her hesitated. Not regret, not exactly, but something made the moment heavier than she had anticipated. She didn't lower her gun, but she didn't fire again either. It was as if the boundary she had prepared to cross had finally been crossed, and now she had to face its true meaning. Then footsteps rang out quick and hurried, shattering the tension like a second explosion. Nick had heard the gunshot. The door burst open, slamming against the wall as he rushed in, his eyes instantly darting around the ceiling, shattered. Adam collapsed, and Riza standing there with the gun. His entire posture shifted to action, to instinct. He advanced toward her, ready to stop her, to end whatever was happening before it went any further. But Riza acted. She didn't wait. She didn't hesitate. Any flicker of doubt that had crossed her face a few seconds earlier had vanished, replaced by intense concentration. She knew she didn't have time, and more importantly, she knew that staying would change everything. With a swift, calculated movement, she glided through the moment out of Nick's reach, disappearing before he could fully close the distance between them. It wasn't luck. It was precision. The kind of precision that showed this wasn't the first time she'd worked her hat. The heavy, relentless rain of Genoa City battered the tinted windows of the unmarked sedan, but Riza Thomas did not blink. Her dark eyes remained fixed on the glowing entrance of Newman Media, watching the silhouette of Adam Newman as he paced in his corner office. For weeks, she had been a phantom in his periphery, meticulously tracking his every movement, learning his routines, and mapping the arrogance that still defined him. But surveillance was only the prelude. To draw a man like Adam out of his fortified castle, she needed a lure he could not ignore. She had found it in the ghost of Matt Clark. By planting forged documents, encrypted emails, and whispers in the dark corners of the dark web, Riza had resurrected the specter of Matt Clark's criminal syndicate. She had made it appear as though Clark's old associates were mobilizing in Las Vegas, threatening to dismantle the Newman family's peripheral assets and expose buried secrets. It was the perfect smokescreen. Adam, ever the paranoid tactician, had taken the bait precisely as she had anticipated. He believed he was marching into a corporate war against an old enemy, entirely blind to the fact that the true architect of his impending ruin was sitting right outside his building, driven not by business, but by a deeply personal, blood-soaked vendetta. 30,000 feet above the American Midwest, the atmosphere inside the luxurious cabin of the Newman Enterprises private jet was suffocatingly tense. Nick Newman swirled the amber liquid in his crystal glass, his jaw set in a rigid line as he glared across the aisle at his younger brother. Adam was hunched over a tablet, his eyes scanning the fabricated dossiers Riza had so carefully fed to his security team. I still don't like this. Adam Nick broke the silence, his voice a low, gravelly rumble. Matt Clark is a ghost. He's been dead for years. The sudden resurgence of his so-called syndicate in Vegas feels wrong. It feels staged. You're getting soft, Nick, Adam replied without looking up, his tone dripping with characteristic condescension. Clark might be dead, but the scavengers who fed off his operations aren't. They think we're distracted. They think they could make a play for the Vegas properties. I'm not going to sit in Genoa City and wait for them to strike. And you think going out there, just the two of us, is the smart play? Nick challenged, leaning forward. I know, Vegas, Adam said, his eyes finally meeting Nick's, a flash of something dark and unreadable crossing his features. I know the players. We get in, we meet with the informant at the Bellagio, we crush this little uprising, and we fly home. Simple. But as the jet touched down on the sun-baked tarmac of McCarran International Airport, neither Newman brother realized they were walking directly into a meticulously constructed trap. The glittering neon skyline of Las Vegas was not a battleground for corporate supremacy. It was a hunting ground, and Riza had already laid the snares. Hours later, the pulsing bass of the casino floor reverberated through the soles of Adam's shoes as he navigated the labyrinth of slot machines and baccarat tables. Nick had stayed behind at the bar to monitor the perimeter, leaving Adam to enter the secluded VIP high roller suite where the supposed informant was waiting. The hallway was unnervingly quiet, the thick velvet carpet absorbing his footsteps. Adam pushed open the heavy mahogany door to Suite 702. The room was plunged in absolute darkness, save for the faint strobing neon light bleeding through the cracks of the blackout curtains. "I'm here," Adam announced, his voice steady, though his hand instinctively drifted toward the inside pocket of his tailored suit jacket. "Show yourself." The attack came with terrifying speed. A shadow detached itself from the corner of the room. Before Adam could draw his weapon, a heavy, blunt object struck his wrist, sending a shockwave of pain up his arm. He cursed, swinging blindly in the dark, but his assailant was agile, slipping beneath his guard. A knee drove into his abdomen, stealing the breath from his lungs. Adam stumbled backward, crashing into a glass coffee table that shattered beneath his weight. As he gasped for air, struggling to orient himself, a heavy boot pressed firmly against his chest, pinning him to the ruined carpet. Through the dizzying haze of pain, Adam heard the unmistakable chilling sound of metal ratcheting. Asterisk. Click, click, click. Asterisk. Cold steel bit into his left wrist, securing him to the heavy brass leg of a nearby sofa. He strained against the restraint, his eyes adjusting to the gloom, just enough to make out the silhouette of a woman standing over him. "Who the hell are you?" Adam spat, tasting blood on his lip. "Clark's people." The woman let out a low, humorless laugh. She leaned down, her face obscured by a dark cap, but the scent of her perfume, something sharp and metallic, burned into his memory. "Matt Clark is a myth, Adam. But the spider is very real." Adam's blood ran cold. The name struck him like a physical blow. Before he could process the sheer terror of that revelation, the woman turned and sprinted toward the service exit. Adam yanked violently against the restraint, lifting his wrist to the faint light. His breath hitched. The handcuffs binding him were not standard police issue. They were custom-forged antique iron engraved with the faint, unmistakable etching of a black widow spider. It was the exact same pair of novelty cuffs he had used years ago during his amnesiac days in the Vegas underground to chain a cheating card counter to a radiator. Out in the casino, Nick had heard the muffled crash of breaking glass. His instincts immediately kicked into overdrive. Abandoning his drink, he sprinted past the bewildered cocktail waitresses, shoving his way through the heavy doors leading to the VIP corridor. He saw the service door swinging shut at the far end of the hall. Adam Nick yelled, but there was no answer. Choosing pursuit over checking the room, Nick threw his weight against the service door, bursting into the stark, fluorescent-lit concrete stairwell. He heard the rapid clatter of footsteps echoing down the stairs. Nick took the steps 3 at a time, his heart hammering against his ribs. He burst out into the sweltering heat of the Vegas alleyway just in time to see the taillights of a black motorcycle tearing off into the night. Nick cursed, kicking a nearby dumpster in frustration. As he turned to head back inside, a glint of silver caught his eye beneath the harsh glare of the security floodlight. He crouched down, retrieving a small silver money clip that the assailant must have dropped in her haste. Tucked inside the clip was an old faded casino chip from a defunct underground poker room, and folded neatly behind it was a small, worn photograph. Nick unfolded the picture. It showed a young woman striking with dark, intense eyes, standing next to a teenage boy with a bright, innocent smile. Nick didn't recognize the woman, but the raw, unadulterated happiness in the photo stood in stark contrast to the violence that had just occurred. This wasn't the calling card of a corporate syndicate. This was personal. Returning to the suite, Nick found Adam sitting on the floor, the hotel security team having just managed to cut through the heavy iron of the spider-engraved handcuffs. Adam looked pale, his usual mask of arrogant invulnerability entirely shattered. Nick dismissed the security guards, locking the door behind them. He tossed the money clip and the photograph onto the desk. "She got away," Nick said, his voice hard, but she dropped that, "Tell me what I'm looking at, Adam," because whoever just ambushed you wasn't working for Matt Clark. Adam stared at the photograph, his jaw tightening. "I don't know who she is." Liar Nick snapped, stepping into his brother's personal space. "You're shaking, Adam. I haven't seen you look like this since you got your memory back. What happened in this room?" While Adam remained stubbornly silent, retreating to the balcony to stare out at the neon grid of the city, Nick took matters into his own hands. He pulled out his encrypted phone, snapping a picture of the photograph and the underground casino chip. He sent it directly to an elite private investigator on the Newman payroll with strict instructions times run facial recognition. Cross-reference with Vegas underground gambling rings from 5 years ago. "I need a name and I need it 10 minutes ago." Asterisk. The silence in the suite stretched thick and suffocating until Nick's phone buzzed. He opened the secure file that had just been transmitted. His eyes scanned the text, his expression hardening with every line he read. Riza Thomas Nick read aloud, his voice cutting through the quiet of the room. Adam flinched, his shoulders stiffening. That's the woman in the photo. She used to run security for the high-stakes underground games. But she's not the one who matters here, is she? Nick paused, looking up at his brother's rigid back. "It's the boy in the picture, Elias Thomas, her younger brother." Nick stepped closer, reading the grim details from the glowing screen. Elias was 19. Got in over his head in a poker game run by a ruthless shark who called himself Spider. The kid couldn't pay his debts. Spider didn't just break his legs. He used the kid as collateral, handed him over to a cartel enforcer to clear his own ledger. Elias was found dead in a storm drain 3 weeks later. Cause of death, blunt force trauma and drowning. Adam gripped the railing of the balcony, his knuckles turning white. The Vegas heat suddenly felt freezing. The memories he had spent years trying to bury, the memories of his time as Spider, the soulless amnesiac gambler who cared for nothing but the next hand and the next payout, came flooding back with sickening clarity. He remembered Elias. He remembered the boy's terrified, pleading eyes As Adam had shoved him toward the cartel, men turning his back on the kid's screams to count his chips, Matt Clark was just a lure. Riza hadn't brought him to Vegas to steal Newman properties. She had brought him here to answer for the blood of her brother. Suddenly, the sharp chime of Adam's burner phone broke the heavy silence. Adam pulled it from his pocket. It was a text message from an unknown number. Attached was a live video feed of the very balcony Adam was standing on, captured from a sniper's vantage point in the hotel across the street. A second message followed the text, appearing on the screen like a digital executioner's axe times. This is your sentence, Adam. Not for the corporate thief you are now, but for the monster you were then. Spider crushed my brother. Now I will crush everything you are. The trial is over. The execution begins. Asterisk. Adam stared at the screen, the breath trapped in his throat. He handed the phone to Nick, whose eyes widened as he read the chilling verdict. She's going to kill you, Nick, said, the anger in his voice now entirely replaced by a grim, urgent reality. She lured us out here, isolated you from Victor's security grid, and she's got you in her crosshairs. This isn't a game, Adam. This is a sanctioned hit. I know, Adam whispered, stepping back from the edge of the balcony, suddenly acutely aware of the red laser sight that could be resting on his chest at any moment. I did it, Nick. I handed that kid over to die. I didn't know I was Adam Newman. I didn't know I had a soul. I was just Spider. You can't bury Spider anymore, Nick shouted, grabbing Adam by the lapels of his jacket and slamming him against the glass door. You think because you got your memory back, your sins are just wiped clean? That kid is dead because of you. You ruined her family, Adam. She's not here for a payoff. She's not here to blackmail you. She is here for blood, and honestly, I can't say I blame her. Nick released his brother, running a hand over his face. You have to face this. You can't run back to Genoa City and hide behind Dad's money. If you run, she will follow you. She will target Chelsea. She will target Connor. You have to face the consequences of what you did. Adam sank into the nearest chair, the weight of his past crushing the breath from his lungs. He opened his laptop, his fingers trembling slightly as he bypassed his own heavy encryption to access the hidden dark web files he had sworn he would never open again. He needed to see it. He needed to understand the exact depth of the wound he had inflicted. The coroner's report for Elias Thomas materialized on the screen. The black and white crime scene photos were a brutal, unforgiving testament to Adam's cruelty. The boy had been tortured. He had suffered unimaginably because Adam, in his hollow amnesiac state, had viewed him as nothing more than a poker chip to be traded. As Adam read through the police notes detailing Riza's frantic, heartbroken search for her brother, the agonizing weeks she spent identifying his battered remains, the cold sociopathic armor that usually protected Adam Newman completely fractured. Tears pricked the corners of his eyes, a rare and agonizing manifestation of pure guilt. He finally understood Riza's motive. It was pure, unadulterated, righteous vengeance. She had spent 5 years marinating in grief, transforming her sorrow into a weapon sharp enough to pierce the Newman empire. Across town, in a dilapidated, neon-lit motel room miles away from the glamour of the Strip, Riza Thomas stood before a mirror. The buzzing of the broken vacancy sign outside cast rhythmic, bloody flashes of red light across her face. She reached into a duffel bag on the stained mattress and pulled out a sleek, suppressed 9mm handgun, checking the chamber with practiced mechanical precision. Beside the weapon lay a heavy encrypted flash drive. It contained every shred of evidence regarding Adam's illegal activities during his time as Spider, the money laundering, the extortion, the cartel connections, and the undeniable proof of his complicity in Elias's death. She was not just going to kill Adam Newman, she was going to annihilate his legacy. She was going to drag the golden boy of the Newman family into the unforgiving light of the public square, exposing him as the monster he truly was before putting a bullet in his heart. Riza picked up the framed photograph of Elias from the nightstand. She traced the glass over her brother's smiling face, her dark eyes entirely devoid of mercy. The trap had been sprung. The prey had realized his doom. She slipped the gun into her shoulder holster and pocketed the flash drive. The time for hiding in the shadows was over. It was time for Spider to pay his debts.